The late night ride. The rain was coming down in sheets, blurring the neon lights of the city into a kaleidoscope of colors. I hailed a taxi, my heels clicking a frantic rhythm against the wet pavement as I hurried towards it. The driver, a man with a face etched with the lines of 1,000 sleepless nights, eyed me in the rearview mirror, a flicker of something unsettling in his gaze. "Where to, doll?" he asked, his voice a gravelly rasp. I gave him the address of my apartment, eager to escape the downpour and the lingering unease that clung to me after a particularly draining night at the club. The driver nodded, his gaze lingering on me for a moment longer than necessary. As we drove, the city lights receded, replaced by the inky blackness of the deserted streets. The rain continued to lash against the windows, obscuring the already dim streetlights. I tried to strike up a conversation, but the driver remained stubbornly silent, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. A shiver ran down my spine as I noticed a strange detail. The taxi's rearview mirror was missing. I tried to dismiss it as a coincidence, but a sense of unease settled over me. The driver's silence was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of his fingers on the steering wheel. Suddenly, the taxi swerved violently, tires screeching against the wet pavement. I gasped, clutching the seat in front of me. The driver slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. "Sorry, doll," the driver muttered, his voice barely audible. "Just a bit of hydroplaning." But I didn't believe him. His eyes, gleaming in the darkness, held a predatory glint. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. Panic surged through me, my blood running cold. The driver turned to me, his smile widening into a chilling grin. "You know," he said, his voice a low growl, "I've been waiting for a fare like you." Fear gripped me, my breath catching in my throat. I tried to scream, but no sound emerged. He reached for me, his hand outstretched, his fingers long and skeletal. I flinched, my body trembling with terror. His hand clamped down on my arm, his grip icy cold. I struggled, but it was futile. His strength was inhuman, his grip like steel. He dragged me out of the taxi, into the darkness of the deserted street. As he pulled me deeper into the shadows, I saw it, a pile of discarded belongings, clothes, jewelry, and other personal items. And then I saw them, the eyes staring out from the darkness, countless pairs of eyes all watching me with an eerie glow. I screamed, a sound that was swallowed by the darkness. The driver laughed, a chilling, guttural sound that sent shivers down my spine. I knew then that I was not going to survive the night. Ellie's encounter with the shadow. In the heart of a quiet suburb, an 8-year-old girl named Ellie found herself alone in her family's large, imposing house. Her parents had left for a weekend getaway, leaving her in the care of a grumpy old babysitter, Mrs. Gable. However, Mrs. Gable had fallen ill unexpectedly, leaving Ellie to fend for herself. Ellie, a bright and adventurous girl, wasn't initially fazed by the situation. She saw it as an opportunity to explore the house, a place she usually wasn't allowed to venture into. As she wandered through the dimly lit rooms, she felt a sense of excitement tinged with apprehension. Suddenly, she noticed a sleek black cat slinking through the shadows. It had piercing yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. Ellie, always drawn to animals, cautiously approached the cat, offering it a piece of leftover chicken from the fridge. The cat hesitated, its ears twitching, then cautiously accepted the offering. As Ellie watched, she noticed a strange glint in the cat's eyes, a mischievous glint that sent a shiver down her spine. As the day wore on, Ellie felt a growing sense of unease. The house seemed to creak and groan, and shadows danced across the walls, taking on grotesque shapes. She kept glancing at the black cat, which seemed to be watching her with an unsettling intensity. As the sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows across the room, Ellie decided it was time to go to bed. She retreated to her room, locking the door behind her. But even in the safety of her room, she couldn't shake off the feeling that she was being watched. In the dead of night, Ellie was awakened by a blood-curdling scream. It seemed to come from the hallway, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. She lay frozen, her heart pounding like a drum. Then she saw it. The black cat, its eyes glowing like embers, stood at the foot of her bed, its body contorted in a grotesque manner. It let out a guttural growl, its voice echoing through the room. Terror consumed Ellie. She tried to scream, but no sound emerged. She reached for her phone, her fingers trembling, but it was nowhere to be found. The cat lunged, its claws extended, its teeth bared. Ellie screamed, her voice finally breaking through the silence. She rolled out of bed, scrambling towards the window, her heart pounding in her chest. She managed to reach the window, her fingers fumbling with the latch. Just as the cat was about to pounce, she managed to slide the window open and scramble out, landing with a thud on the soft grass below. She ran, her bare feet pounding against the pavement, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't stop until she reached her neighbor's house, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She rang the doorbell, her fingers trembling. The neighbor, a kind elderly woman, opened the door, her face etched with concern. Ellie, her voice trembling, explained what had happened. The neighbor, her eyes wide with disbelief, immediately called the police and Ellie's parents. As she waited for her parents to arrive, Ellie looked back at her house, its windows dark and menacing. She knew she would never forget the night she faced the terrifying creature. The night she learned that sometimes the scariest things are closer than we think.